Well, it's another day in this garden vlog here. Season 2 of our online vlog. You know, we missed so much early in the season because of that drought. But it's going to be a busy day. However, it may not be gardening, so I'm not sure what we're going to do in this video here. We got a few ideas. Do we have time to do them? Who knows? What we're first going to do is we're going to prune some of these beautyberries and stuff and try to just put like a bunch of them in like a 3-gallon pot to try to root. And you know, everybody is so worried about taking too many beautyberries. It seems to be an obsession with people. We're taking it from the wildlife, yet these guys are just shriveling up and dying, you know, on the tree or shrub, and none of the wildlife is getting them. I got a few probably like 18 to 24, 26 inch pieces that are going to be cut up and put into pots. This should, you know, maybe fill up a 3-gallon container by the time we do all the cuttings. And I'm just going to set them in water for right now. Got a cement mixer tub here that we use to bottom water a lot of things. So the beautyberries we root in the pots, they're going to be to distribute to the garden community around here. But I think we're going to cut some and put them in the ground, you know, just to appease, you know, all these people that think we're robbing, you know, the birds and the wildlife of all these beautyberries. And you know, some of them will root, some of them won't, but we will have more trees at the end of the season, shrubs, whatever you want to call them, perennial plants. Probably should have did this later in the day because the mosquitoes are horrible here. But we're just going to put them here where we don't normally, you know, if I can get them low enough to hit maybe at least 2 buds in the ground. That we don't normally mow this area. We do need to pull out all these coral ardesias. That was our plan last season and it never worked. But they are everywhere. So I'll just do 3-4 foot apart. Push these things at least 2 buds in the ground if I can. And we'll cut a few more. Put 10 or 20 in the ground. These guys here are sort of in our mow zone, our trail zone. So we definitely need to cut them back. Possibly later come and dig some of the roots up and move them back toward the fence there or somewhere else. A handful here. So this will probably make 10, 12, 13 or so that we're going to put in the ground today. Here's the last one. Just put it in the ground here. Should be pretty soft. We got about 3 buds in the ground there. I want to say back there beyond our property line, another oak just fell down. That looks like a fresh one. And I was just now looking at it and see that big heel back there. Let's see if we can see it here where the roots came up. Might be hard to see on camera. Right in that area there. And that's how I kind of made raised bed number 2 when I don't know if it was a red maple or something fell down. We cut the tree off, hauled it off, and we just let those roots and that dirt stay up in the ground. And I kind of did the fire ant bomb and all that, adding material, hay and everything, to create like a mycorrhizal raised bed based on it being high up in the ground. So, you know, God or whatever, Mother Nature already sort of prepared that bed for us. So we just needed to prepare it a little bit more, figure out what we were going to do with it. So right now there probably isn't a whole lot of potting and planting we need to do until we get some plant markers and start taking cuttings from, you know, like the mulberry trees and stuff. I may do some white mulberries just because some people want these wild types even though they're non-native. They have established, you know, all over anyway. So most people consider them a native plant. And of course, the elderberries, the 2015, and then maybe 2 of the everbearing type, you know, just for experimentation, you know, and I'll have to mark everbearing 1 or whatever with just a piece of tape maybe. And that way I know if one fails, I know which one to replace to root. Should I attempt to do this Morris nigra that really doesn't do much here, just for novelty's sake for other people? I mean, I may stick a few in a pot just to see what happens. But I think the dwarf everbearing is probably the biggest tree that I have that is going to be most popular until we get Illinois everbearing, 6th Street, and a variety of others, Chiang 60, and maybe Wellington Collier, until they're big enough to actually take enough plant material from to root to give away. That dwarf everbearing is probably going to be the most popular that everybody wants. Is my Rio Grande palm ever going to fruit? I don't know how old they have to be. There was like a little tiny trunk, if you could call it that, there after like 10 plus years. But I was reading that even the Florida sable palms have edible fruit. And so I went and tried some the other day because a lot of them are in fruit right now. The only thing that edible is like the skin. But what kind of amazes me is that little strip of skin on the outer part of the seed or whatever. It tastes like a palm date from like the desert. I'm not sure how you would actually use that in any sort of cooking method or anything, because there's such small amount of that skin that is usable. What do you do with it? Look at this little micro pineapple guava that fell. It is soft, even though it's tiny. But these are seedlings, and a lot of them seem to fall and be like brown on the inside. They're rotting on the inside versus being maybe how they should be. But so we really probably aren't going to get a good comparison between seedling 1 and seedling 2 this year. I hope that by the time we do our post-mycorrhizal type beds around all of them, that we can really keep them well watered or moistened, especially with those little micro feeder roots and stuff. They need that with mulch or whatever, so that they don't droop in the summertime always. And maybe it'll make them a little bit more happy. Maybe they'll produce more fruit, maybe bigger fruit, maybe better quality fruit. But if not, we still have these grafted ones that hopefully will do something, for us and be something worthwhile. And you see, there's kind of a little bit of brownness in there when you open it. But I'm just gonna bury these fruits like opened in a raised bed or something, and if they produce more seedlings, that's fine. So I'm thinking that a phase 2 in probably season 3 of our garden vlog, a part of giving back to the garden community, will be when I go out and start working. I hope I got time to do this. Start trimming all the muscadines and trying to root a massive amount just by sticking 50 or however many in the 3-gallon pots and just fill them up, see what we can come up with, and then just give them away. And probably some Celeste figs as well. In 1, 2, 5 years or so, I'm not sure, we should also have plenty of other types of figs to give away, as long as we don't have problems with like nematodes or whatever killing off our figs. We should have a lot more fig material to root or give cuttings to people for them to root. These kind of leggy and like unproductive beautyberries here, I think I'm going to probably chop them to the ground so that hopefully that they'll come out from the ground and be reinvigorated, and hopefully they'll start doing more here, because there's like green leaves, a small amount of berries on dead wood, half dead wood, and it just looks bad. We talked about like doing that soft sand pear in this area where we have the 2 others, the one from like that fruits well in Tennessee but maybe not here, and then the one that blooms all the time back there but never produces fruit because it needs pollination. But we do have one that we built the post-mycorrhizal bed around, which you may not easily be able to see, but there's kind of like the border of it. Hopefully it'll start taking off and start blooming and doing well for us. Maybe we need to get rid of some of this shade though to make it happy. I think it personally, I think it looks better. It's just growing crooked because of the shade here. It might be hard to trim those like limbs like 15 or 18 foot in the air there, but we'll see what we can do. And of course we need to cut some of these down or majorly trim these trees, like that oak tree I've been talking about doing, like a chop and drop oak. It's going to be a chainsaw job. But I think even if you chop it to the ground, it's going to shoot sprouts up again. So that's why I said we could probably reuse it, let it grow for a few years, chop it down, let it grow, chop it down until it's either doesn't come back or just comes back forever. That one over there that I said that hasn't bloomed or produced fruit is the Harvest Queen, which is, you know, probably an heirloom variety that isn't commercial or whatever. I was thinking for sure we'd have some yellowing in these bananas before we got cooler weather, but it's going to be 48 degrees in 2 nights. You know, should we cut the stalk and hang it somewhere to let it kind of ripen from the stalk? Maybe I should ask some people that are more in the know. I think, you know, before that little bit of cool weather comes in, we're probably going to take all the star fruit seeds and avocado seeds that we have outside in pots and go ahead and bring them inside. So hopefully that'll help with them sprouting or faster. I know 48 degrees probably isn't ideal for anything to sprout. Even now, 57, 50, 9 degrees probably isn't the best. And I've been doing a little bit of research about bananas, and even if you haven't, there was somebody years ago, I think in Hawaii, but I'm not sure, they grew coconuts. And this guy, instead of fertilizing his coconut tree, after it was already mature, he just put the coconut shells back in the ground to compost slowly into that ground where the coconut tree, palm tree, lived. And that was his way of kind of refertilizing. Maybe he did something supplemental. You probably don't even have to with coconuts. I don't know. They grow just randomly on beaches and stuff, right? And then I've been watching YouTube, like how to grow bananas, just to see what people have had successes with. And one of the things that comes up is, in North Central Florida, with or without protection a little bit, you're not going to grow you're not going to have bananas, fruits year round. So you're buying from the grocery store or whatever if you eat bananas year round, and we eat bananas year round. So use your banana peels, rotten bananas or whatever to feed your banana trees to give them that potassium and stuff back. And then, also do your wood ash or potash or whatever you got to give it back to your bananas to help them supposedly it'll help them from falling over during storms, rainstorms and stuff like that. I don't know. Magnesium and potassium is what I've been told that they need to try to prevent falling over. Now, that's not in a hurricane or a tornado, which, they're going to fall over anyway. But just randomly falling over, that's occurred, to my bananas over the years. That's one of the reasons why I don't have 1,000 bananas. Maybe we didn't replant all of them, or we took them somewhere else and they didn't do so well. Pulling weeds and mulching around the banana will obviously keep it moist. It'll give it some micronutrients that are just kind of slowly released into their root systems. And if you don't have those grasses and weeds taking over the whole area, then you don't have those weeds and grasses stealing your nutrients from your bananas. And I think I talked about this a few videos ago. Some people say plant, sweet potatoes, pineapples, papayas in a banana mound or a banana circle. Other people say keep everything else out of there, just to let the bananas have all the nutrients. Anyway, there's no way we're going to have 1 or 2 or 3 racks of bananas from our banana trees and just give that back to the banana trees and call it a day. They're heavy feeders, they need a lot of water. So, but everything you do is, including getting bananas from the grocery stores and using your peels to feed them, using your burnt wood to feed them, your chop and drop, putting everything in that mound or dip, depending on the maturity level of your banana circle, I guess, is going to help the bananas grow. Ground covers, people plant little vines like sweet potatoes and stuff to hold in moisture and to fight off weeds. But they probably do steal some of your nutrients, away from your bananas. Suppose if you can't maintain, the constant, weeds and mulching and all that, you don't have time, you're physically not able to, or maybe you have so many trees and plants that you just can't put that time and physical labor into it. Maybe it would be better to have this living mulch, perennial peanuts or like I said, sweet potatoes and a variety of other things. So yeah, people have two different ideas. One is to plant it with those things, one is to not plant it. We haven't tried the banana circles yet. We have the banana mound, we have bananas just in the ground, and we need to experiment for a few years and see what works. I can tell you I'm probably going to plant out our first circle with something, or unless I just change my mind last minute and just buy a truckload of mulch and just mulch around everything and try to keep a weed barrier there. But right now I'm thinking plant it out. Am I going to have more than one banana circle by the end of season 3 of our garden vlog? I don't know. And I talked about peticulture versus permaculture over the last year or two, off and on, including like a video not too long ago why I said homeowners associations were like against putting gardens in your front yard, and how you kind of use the weeds, what other people consider weeds, Biden's alba and stuff like that, to feed the plants that are providing food and herbs and teas and stuff for your family, or just bring in pollinators to help maximize pollination of your fruit trees and stuff. One question you may have is like, when you try to coax your land into growing all of these fascinating edibles and herbs and medicinal things, pollinators, do you stop at a certain point so that you still have enough weeds and tree limbs and leaves and all to feed all your plants? Or do you have an unending, relentless, whatever, to keep planting, and then, you slowly take over those weeds with stuff that you want? When you run out of the weeds and all that to feed your plants, or will that happen? Does that sort of defeat the purpose of permaculture, where you're not having to go out 20 or 50 or 100 miles to go get mulch and fertilizer and compost and stuff like that? Because there would be a certain point where your yard is no longer chop and drop or whatever, I would imagine, unless you intentionally kept a weed pile, or like Mexican Tithonia or comfrey patch or whatever, and had enough to provide compost and stink water or whatever it is for you, or mulch, for you to feed your garden. Anyway, I'm sure there was a much shorter way to explain that. Hopefully I didn't bore you and confuse you by trying to explain it. I personally think that, with a grass catcher on the lawnmower, wood chippers, much more time for physical labor, maybe quite a bit more money, I could, you know, process all the grasses, weeds, limbs, sticks, trees, you know, invasive trees and everything like that, and provide, you know, mulch, compost, chop and drop, the fetid swamp water or stink water or whatever you want to call it, and probably do even more things to feed everything in the ground. Maybe I could not provide, obviously, pots and potting soil to pot up hundreds if not thousands of plants every year to give away or to grow out or whatever, but I could at least feed what's in the ground and probably more. So I think it's theoretically possible to do that with much more, like I said, with much more stuff in the ground. But there would be a cutoff point. I mean, you could do human manure if you wanted to. You could do urine if you wanted to. And, you know, you see us often like emptying our guinea pig bedding on the raised beds. We say we're christening a bed, you know, our new beds, or, you know, that stuff will all provide nutrients. I mean, I've dug, you know, just a little bit in there months after putting it down in these beds, and there's all kinds of insects and earthworms, all kinds of, you know, microbial activity in that. You know, it's got pea poop, it's probably got hay, it's got leftover feed, and it's got the shredded aspen. And I've also often asked, you know, should we get some rabbits again? And I guess, you know, the food bill for rabbit food is pretty expensive. But, you know, what people don't know usually is that rabbits feed, you know, what they should eat after they're like a year and a half old or so is like 70% hay. And, you know, you might give them a little bit of this alfalfa pellet, you know, that's just because that's what you buy in rabbit food. Those are for young rabbits. And, you know, you might give them some carrots and some fruits or vegetables and stuff, maybe some fresh grass. But they say, you know, even pulling grass, you know, that grass will ferment, you know, wherever you tear it. So it's not good for very long before it causes like digestion issues in rabbits. But I guess the biggest point is it costs so much to feed them, and they waste so much of their hay and stuff like that. If their diet is 70% hay and they waste, you know, 90% of their hay, you know, that hay just drops to the ground. It has no use unless you use it for your garden somehow. But that hay could also have seeds, you know, grass seeds in it that you may or may not want. So you might have to compost it. You might have to age it somewhere else out, you know, just putting a big old bundle on the ground and make a big hill. And, you know, after a few years it gets hot, you know, and it sort of dies down and it kills off those seeds and weed seeds. And but, you know, the only way I could justify the cost of doing rabbits is to use the rabbit poop, the rabbit pee, the hay, everything that they waste in the garden. And I'm not even sure if it would still pay off. And I think too, you know, people need to be more open to subterranean composting, especially with items that rats or raccoons or dogs and stuff would get into, you know, versus putting those in the landfill, buried in the ground. Cover it with some sticks and stuff that, you know, most likely no dogs or anything is going to dig up. Americans waste a lot of the grocery store stuff that they buy, you know, a pretty big chunk. So that can go in a landfill, in a sealed container, in a sealed bag, and just pollute, you know, for years and years and years. Or you can empty the container, cottage cheese, whatever, barbecue sauce, you know, ferment it or put it under the ground and, you know, turn it into nutrients. I think when you have kids, you buy a loaf of bread or 2 loaves. They go through it really fast. You know, for weeks they might go through that loaf of bread in a day or two. Then, you know, there's like a stalemate or something. Then it's like, oh, I just bought this bread. Y'all didn't eat half of it. Now it's moldy or whatever. And here's wasted bread. We don't have goats to feed them to, but if you do feed it to the goats, just bury it, subterranean compost. Anyway, that's enough about that. I think we need to probably try to root some of this lemon verbena too. People love this for their teas and stuff. You know, they kind of have a citrus. I would say it's kind of a citrus oil smell. And sometimes they can almost have a little bit of a skunky smell too. Something like that. Maybe I should have used the 3 gallon instead of 1 because I got like double. I think I'm just going to put this in the ground somewhere and see what happens. The lemon verbena, so we put it in a 1 gallon pot. Kind of stuffed it as much as I'm comfortable with stuffing it, I guess. That is right there. I think we're going to use this 3 gallon to put those beautyberries in. Remember, we're rooting them or trying to root them, and we'll have to separate them in the smaller pots later. So I did not plant this one out as densely. I went ahead and used really long pieces and just lists of them. So we'll see how this goes. So there we go. Some for the wildlife, some for the people as far as the beautyberries are concerned. Peruvian apple cactus I planted down there. Probably can't see it. It's still alive, but it is not growing very fast. Maybe we need a big one to add to our collection, and hopefully it'll be genetically different to that guy and can help pollinate it if it needs a pollinate. So I got some pretty good news. A piece of scion wood or a couple pieces are coming today, and I think I briefly talked about this. You know, a surprise cultivar and type of scion wood was coming to attempt to do a graft or a couple or 3 grafts or so. We'll see how much good looking wood or how good it looks to see if we can do 3 or 6. I don't know, but we're going to try a different method of grafting, or really same technique, but in a way to try to prevent that graft, that scion wood, from drying out. And I'll just say it, we've never wrapped the whole piece. You know, when we did the mulberries and had all those failures, we've never really did that with the persimmons. But it seems like this is a method that should be a little bit better. Hopefully we get at least one to take so that we can have scion wood for other experiments or to give away or trade or whatever later as well. So my first experiments with grafting and successes was with grocery store bags. Just cut into strips, wrapped around the graft union, and that's it. But I've never wrapped the whole actual scion wood. And I know, like on loquats, your tip bud is probably the most important, but you may have a few other buds. This is the same thing. This is buddy tape. It's not parafilm. Parafilm, it's easier for the buds to push through and break through the parafilm. This here, they say you have to kind of sort of stretch the tape before you wrap it, so you're making it a little bit weaker. But parafilm tape is really expensive, and some people don't really like it. You know, there's people that love it, there's people that hate it, there's people that prefer this. And I guess if the buds don't push through within 4 to 6 weeks and they show that the union may be connected and doing okay, then you can cut a little slit, I guess, where the buds are and allow them to push through when you use this kind of buddy tape or whatever. So, yeah, you don't have to buy any sort of grafting tape to experiment with grafting. Get you some scissors and a grocery bag. You got a strip, maybe a little bit less wide, but I was just doing this in a hurry. And, you know, you can stretch it a little bit, give it a little stretch, just like the grafting tape. If you pull too much, it might break, but just wrap it again at the union to create a seal. You can see here at our Atwood pawpaw, this guy's probably about ready to take off so it doesn't girdle the actual thing. It's probably been on a little too long, but you know, we don't really cover the whole thing when we do it, but we're going to have to start doing that for the harder to graft ones that dry out super easily. It looks good. We just need to get a razor or something in there if we can't, you know, untie it and just make it. So we got 4 1-gallon containers, and these are going to be for our duo elderberries. So everbearing 1 and everbearing 2. And instead of labeling them, we're going to wrap them, everbearing 1, with a piece of plastic. So that signifies if one dies, we know what to replace it with. Of course, if both die, not root, we'll just replace both. It's that simple. Now we know these are all everbearing one. These are identifiers, and we know if they have two of them in here, that this is the everbearing elderberries. So we're going to go get the everbearing 2 and put 4 cuttings in these 4 pots. We're just bottom soaking them for just a short time in these cement tubs here, and then we'll put them in the shade somewhere. It's been many hours later, and I got the package. It feels a little bit smaller than I was expecting, so let's look and see what's in it. Here they are wrapped up. It looks like there's moisture in them. That's good. They didn't lose moisture. Looks like that's the tips. This is a Champaign loquat. There's 3 big pieces, and if I'll check it out, there's probably enough maybe to do 6 grafts, but I'm not sure. We'll have to look and see how many buds and stuff. Here's our first attempt. We're not going to do this on camera because we may fail completely, but if we start having successes with it, we'll probably do a step-by-step video. As you see, we covered the buds not too tightly here, wrapped it tight here, filled in the kind of air gap there, and it's not the same size piece, so we only tried to match the cambium layer on this side. We'll see how it goes. Got a little piece off of one that we could get 2 on, so it's like a 3-inch piece, and it had a bud here. So we are trying it with this one that we potted. These are the 3 in the pots that I just potted up, and I just went ahead and grafted on them just because of the size of the scion wood. I put a little one on one of the small limbs of this larger loquat that I saved last year. Now, I'm sure an expert could have made at least 2 grafts out of that, but let's just see what happens. Out of those 3 cuttings, we made 5. We probably could have made like 8 if we were experts. And just cross our fingers and see if these Champaign ones, any of them, take. I'll be happy if even one takes. Kids came out as soon as I came out and started trying to put that first scion wood piece on the tree, driving me nuts. So I'm sure I did a horrible job being just a nervous wreck, or just being distracted, I guess I should say, not nervous wreck. And you can still hear them hollering. Right, JJ?
Yeah, right.
See, even they agree with me. It's another morning. It almost looks like there's a storm coming because of the wind. Hey, we actually got a cold front moving in. This is our first, it's supposed to be like in the upper 40s tomorrow morning. I wouldn't exactly call yesterday a bad day or a horrible day, but it was a super long day. We had to go get some tires on the car. It's a wheelchair van, super low. The tire place had a lot of trouble. It took like 2 hours to get the tires put on the front 2 front tires on it. And I guess because the mail didn't run on Monday, Columbus Day, holiday, everything was so backed up. They had double the packages, I guess, to deliver. And those scion wood pieces didn't come in till like 5:30. It was probably closer to 6 p.m. before I could shoot out there to put them on there. I wish there was some more excitement in this video about that, but the kids came out as soon as I started working. I put my little work, makeshift work area on the trampoline, and guess what they wanted to do? They wanted to get on the trampoline. So I moved them onto their slide, and guess what? When I did that, they wanted to get on the slide, and I moved it somewhere else, and I finally went back to the slide again after the rest of the kids come out. So our middle son came out first, and then, before the end, we had all 3 of them out there just, okay, I'm trying to do something before, and I'm always fighting darkness, and Natalie gets upset a lot of times because at the end of the day, kids need their showers, you got dinner, she needs to get her stuff ready for bed, and I'm fighting darkness, because when it gets dark out, I can't really do anything. So I feel like maybe I did a rush job trying to graft those, the loquats. I just hope that at least one of the, 5 or so I did take. You know, like I said, I did 1 in the ground, I did 3 in the pots that were just potted up, and the one that's been in a pot for maybe around a year, 8 months or a year or so, I can't remember. And we're going to put the smaller pots back here in the shade, heavy shade here, so sunburn, you know, all that stuff doesn't stress them out. Keep them moist, keep them watered, and hope that they callus up and start shooting out some new growth buds. I've been up since probably like 4:45, 5 o'clock. My youngest son closed the bedroom door on, you know, our bedroom door last night when I said keep it open. Then our largest dog wanted to come in to get water and stuff, so Natalie woke up, open that door, let that dog in, she's keeping me up. So I got up, let her in, went to the bathroom, tried to lay back down, but then the dog wanted to go outside, so I had to get back up again. And we went outside and I made coffee. I already drank my coffee. Natalie and everybody's still asleep. It's just now daylight, you know. It's been dark. I've just been waiting for daylight to come out here. See, pretty much all these mulberries are stressing out. They're going to lose their leaves. I was going to put them in the shade, but, you know, maybe they'll recover here. We're getting cooler weather. Just keep them, you know, misted, you know, on top and well watered on the bottom. And, you know, hopefully they'll bring out, you know, new buds and stuff. It's almost, I don't know. We're going to have winter anyway where they're going to drop their leaves. So maybe they won't even produce more leaves until their next spring or so. But I have a feeling, you know, with our mild winters like last year, they may go through a growth mode where they put on extra leaves or whatever and then drop. You know, it's hard to tell what they're going to do this year. I don't know if we're going to have time today or not, but we probably need to take at least like 2 of these chaya cuttings, these tips here, and try to make some more chaya. We need to cut some more of this hibiscus, 2 or 3 or 4 cuttings of that. Make some new cuttings, try to root them. But back to the loquats. I didn't really plan to use the loquats that I pulled up and repotted to do the grafting. It was just that, you know, it was late, tired. Kids come out here, and I didn't really have a lot of time to scope out some of the plants in the ground and stuff, except the one. And I probably could have did a few more either on that one or a different one that's in the ground. And you know, it is what it is. If one of these takes or multiple ones take, you know, we have the material to move it somewhere else later. Just like this shambhala or whatever, which actually I found out it could also be a Novak that was just rediscovered and someone thought it was a seedling. It's hard to tell based on the person that I guess bought the farm that it was on. We could also put multiple varieties on this one here, because we really probably don't have a lot of room to plant more than one here. And, you know, we got the 3-in-1 in the front. I just noticed something on this cold hardy pineapple. It looks like there's a sucker there, possibly 3 or 4. And we only really want to keep one sucker on it so that when the main plant dies down, that sucker will use the nutrients from this one to sort of feed itself and fruit on. But if you have too many sucking the nutrients out of it, they say that the pineapple fruits will be smaller, so you take the sucker off and you make another plant with all of your extra suckers. Now I'm going to get down there and pull suckers out without getting ate up with these super sharp leaves. I don't know. Do we eventually make a bed that's like 20 or 30 or 40 foot long with just nothing but pineapples? Or do we just keep a few for ourselves and give away, you know, some, you know, to the local garden community? Look at that wind. Boy, that cold front must be moving in fast. Well, I think this is probably going to be a long day. I don't know if anything or how much garden stuff we're going to be doing, but I just mainly wanted to finish off this video this morning. Almost looks like this is hard. Check that out. Wow. That might be more winds than Milton brought us personally. And there's definitely a chance those winds. I think it's supposed to have been 58 this morning. There's a couple more things I want to talk about before I end this video, but I did Google, whether or not males can have sterile pollen on these papayas and stuff. And I think for the most part, I don't think that happens or very often. But it did say when I Googled it that sometimes the females can go temporarily sterile or just not be receptive to being pollinated due to weather, environmental conditions or whatever, too much water, not enough water, something is causing it to be stressed or just not receptive. These guys, even though I covered the base and stuff last year with pine straw, they, right there's the line that it died from and regrew from on the female there. The male the male came out first. It's foot and a half taller. It's been flowering for months. The female just started flowering a few weeks ago. So maybe next year, if we protect it, this winter, now if we get a worse winter, it's liable to go all the way to the ground or the same as it did before. I don't know. Maybe mild winters and better protection will make these guys sprout earlier in the spring, shoot up bigger, flower earlier, and maybe it'll make them happy. I don't know though, since I've only grown, papayas successfully once, to fruit. And I've, just experimented with a few where they were unprotected. And some of them, I think I had some in Wetland Zone 1, 10, 15 years ago, come back 4 or 5 years. But, like I said, unprotected. They probably died down to the ground mostly, came back, and it didn't have enough protection the previous winter to do anything. But these look good. They may be a dwarf or something because they're, 8, 9 foot and maybe less than that, because remember, we're in a raised bed anyway, so we're raised up off of the ground. But they've been flowering. This guy's been flowering since it was about 5 foot tall. Yeah. I think I just heard a kid open the door and close it. So I tried to come out here before everybody wakes up, but hey, nighttime, I got at least one kid attached to the hip, and I ended up going to bed earlier last night than I expected to. And, because he was just on top of me all night, the youngest kid. And so when I finally went to bed, he went to bed. So I guess the last thing I want to talk about is maybe why the sunchokes we planted in the ground did not do well. So you may or may not know, if you've been on this channel long enough, we grew sunchokes in new raised beds and in new potted buckets and stuff. We went from a pound or so of tubers to start with. In 2 or 3 years, we were getting more and more production, but what I've noticed is that once you dig those tubers, you need to put them back into something pretty fast or they'll rot. So I think a combination of maybe taking too much tubers, not protecting the tubers enough. And here's, I think, the ultimate reason why we went into a major decline is because the soil compacted, in those, after year 3 or whatever. So we got less production. And I think, we put sunchokes last year in the ground, maybe in a bucket or two. And this was not in raised beds. They were not in new soil. They were in already dense, compacted soil anyway. So maybe that is a big reason why we only got a few sprouted, come up to 3 or 4 feet, die down, and not produce any tubers for us. It's obvious that I have kids opening and closing the doors over and over again, probably looking for me. Mama might be saying, "Where's Daddy? Go find Daddy." So I'm going to end this video here, and I don't know if I'm going to start another garden vlog today or not, but you guys take care.